Fantastic. So first of all, I thought it'd be good, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to our audience, and just tell us a little bit more about your background. How did you get to the creation of LinkUp, and more importantly, how did you find this new application in quantitative finance for jobs?
Yeah, thanks, Armando. It's great to be here, and we're looking forward to a great day, and more importantly, a fantastic partnership with RavenPack. It's been a lot of fun to work with you and your team on our data set. So I'm Toby Dayton, CEO of LinkUp. We are a company that has been focused on the human capital management space, and specifically recruitment advertising and labor demand for 20 years. So the company was started sort of out of the dot-com bubble bursting sort of back in 2001. And really the origins of the business were centered around finding a better way to match candidates with employers. And so that was really the focus. We started scraping jobs back in 2003 directly from company websites. So what we do at LinkUp, we're indexing job openings specifically from tens of thousands of companies, millions of job listings every day from around the world. So we've got really granular insights into what's going on from labor demand standpoint for essentially everybody that's hiring around the world.
I mean, and labor data has become one of the most important factors right now, especially during these times of economic crisis, right?
Yeah, it's just been incredible through the pandemic, and it was a significant, obviously it's an important macro and micro indicator of what's going on within a company, but certainly in the pandemic, it's just been unbelievable, sort of what's happened around the focus on labor.
And perhaps given the deteriorating market conditions, right, that we're seeing, when you look at your data, like what worries you most, or what do you think we should be worried about that is coming next?
Well, I think for everybody, the focus is obviously on inflation and central bank and sort of policy around interest rates and what the Fed is doing in reaction to that, and the debate around soft landing, hard landing, what's going on there. So that's certainly what we're keenly focused on. What we've seen in our data is that labor demand has tapered off quite significantly since it peaked in April. Job openings in our data set are down about 16% since they peaked in March. New job openings are actually down much more significantly, about 25%. So we've seen the gradual balance being achieved between supply and demand. We think there's still a good case for a soft landing, but it's certainly a lot of factors that go into that. So we're certainly worried about what the Fed might do to put the brakes on a little bit too aggressively, given what we've seen, and it's really an interesting aspect to what's going on around, certainly from a macro standpoint.
Yeah, very interesting. It's probably a good segue to running a little poll question, if you guys don't mind, because everybody's pretty much looking at unemployment, right, as what's going to happen with unemployment with all these different changes. Just wanted to ask you, what are you seeing also in terms of kind of these trends? I know you guys look at data on a daily basis, right? And you're really trying to focus on what's changing. Are you seeing anything more recently, like the last few months, that is trending in a specific sector, right?
Well, certainly coming out of the pandemic, one of the things we're looking at closely is the trend around remote and hybrid work. So that is an example of some of the kinds of signals you can see, and it has broad implications, I think, in lots of different sectors and different asset classes. The way is fundamentally changing the way people are working. So I think that is something we're paying close attention to. And obviously there was a huge spike in remote work, and that's starting to taper back a little bit, and things are starting to get normalized in what effectively is hopefully a more normalized or new normal around remote work. So we're tracking that pretty closely.
Are you seeing any hiring freezes?
There are hiring freezes. We certainly are seeing, as I said, the job openings have declined. Part of that is from hiring freezes. It's more sector specific and company specific at this point. Certainly the technology firms have been hiring dramatically coming out of COVID, and now they're starting to pull back a little bit. So we are seeing some sort of anecdotally freezes and announcements and such.
So we've got our question up there. It looks like some people started to vote. So this is in relation to the U.S. unemployment rate, which fell 3.5 in September. So when the data is released for December, where does our audience think it'll be? Looks like the majority believe that the unemployment rate will be between 3.6 and 4.
And that's really why I think one of the fascinating debates going on right now is can there be balance in supply, demand, and labor without necessarily having unemployment spike? And it's a pretty heated debate going on right now between economists and sort of pundits all over. It's really going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
You mentioned remote work as well, because it's obviously something we're tracking, right? The change from remote to hybrid. We have another poll question around that. We'll see if our team can get that going. I'm just wondering, like, where are we, and specifically, like, when we're seeing these shifts, right, from fully on-site, especially in finance, right? People working at the office and slowly getting a few remote days here and there a week, and then we have COVID hits, right? Now it's mostly people remote, bit of a transition going on. So the question to our audience is, are financial firms more efficient, right, when their teams are working either hybrid, right? This is sort of mix of being at least 3 times a week at the office, or working partially remote, full-time at the office, or just full-time remote. Do you have any thoughts on what works best?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is obviously there's just a massive spike in the amount of remote and hybrid job openings, and that is language that's contained in a job description, so it's something very trackable, and the RavenPack taxonomy picks up on that really nicely. So what we've seen is a huge spike, but it's very sector specific and very occupation specific. Obviously, knowledge workers, they can work at home, and certainly from the financial industry is one that is interesting to watch because they've sort of had that forced mandate back to work, and there's been some pushback against that. So sort of where that settles in is probably what we're seeing is in that sort of three days a week in the office is sort of the norm, and I think it's early still. I think companies are still adapting to that, but it seems to be that's where that sort of optimal efficiency and productivity is somewhere in that 3 days a week.
Yeah, Toby, maybe let's talk a little bit more about LinkUp, your company. Now, where did this idea come from? Right? What are the origins of this firm?
So the company, as I said, was founded about 20 years ago in Minneapolis. And I was at a venture development company after working on my first startup. I wanted to get some sort of deal experience and work in a portfolio of companies. So I went to a venture development company, and this company, I didn't actually found it myself. It was founded by the original founder, who came into our development company in about month 2. And the premise around recruitment advertising and talent acquisition was very consistent with a lot of the themes of the firm. So we adopted it, and I spent a ton of time working with this, and it became kind of an overweight focus of mine. The original business was actually multimedia recruitment advertising. So we were combining print, web, radio, TV, broadcast media to deliver a more valuable and effective solution for employers trying to find candidates. And quality was really the theme that we were focused on, and that was going to be our competitive differentiation. So when we started to see that employers were posting job openings on their company websites directly, again, this was sort of back in 2002, 2003, we instantly identified that as really the future of recruitment advertising and job listings. So we started scraping those jobs and have today become the global leader in delivering job market data based on that really unique, powerful, and predictive data that's inherent in a job opening. As sort of the theme of the morning is causality, and job listings certainly don't cause a hire to be made, but they're a very, very strong indicator of an intent for an employer, for a company to make a hire. So they're really strong signals on both the sort of upside and downside, and provide a significant window into company performance. And then it can be rolled up at a sector level and a macro level. Yeah.
And how would you say LinkUp is different to perhaps other companies that are doing something similar in terms of collecting jobs, right? But how's your process different?
Yeah, so we're focused entirely on the demand side. Certainly in the employment category of alternative data, there are some other really interesting data sets and complementary in a lot of ways. Supply of workers, LinkedIn data, other kinds of data set. But within the specific category of labor demand, we're unique in that we only index jobs directly from company websites. So we're not aggregating jobs from job boards. staffing firms, recruiting firms, other third-party intermediaries. It's taken directly from the employer itself, and it's updated every day, so it's really accurate. Companies tend to be very disciplined. When they fill a job, they take the job listing off of their website. They don't want to get inundated with applicants for positions that have already been filled. So it's very accurate data and again, collected daily. So it's essentially provides real-time insight into hiring.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that you don't start as a data company. You didn't necessarily think that this would be applicable to quantitative finance, right? So there was a transition, right, from just the original idea of a business use case to finding that data you were collecting would serve as a foundational signal. It
was really an interesting evolution. We started using, with our legacy business model, which we shut down years and years ago, but we had this great data set. We actually were using it ourselves to help fuel our own growth. So when we were rolling out our legacy business model in new markets, we were using the data ourselves to launch those markets and better understand where in the U.S. we wanted to expand into. So we knew there was really interesting value there. When we, after the financial crisis, we rolled out LinkUp and started generating revenue from that side of the business in 2009. And our first data clients actually were in the human capital management space. So for years we were powering Monster and Career Builder were two of our biggest clients. We were powering job boards actually. And so we knew that the quality was there and the value was there, and then got into capital markets. Actually, we started forecasting non-farm payrolls back in 2009, 10, 11. Started to see that there were applications in capital markets, and that sort of led us to deliver a raw product into specifically designed for large global systematic quants.
And in order to build such infrastructure, what are some of the challenges that you typically faced or face today, right?
Yeah, it's a constant, it's a constant set of challenges around it. It's a very large data set. It is, scraping web data has got a whole host of unique challenges. Scale is really the thing that we are focused on, is really scale and quality are the two biggest things. And having global coverage and continuing to grow and expand that, and then maintain the quality thresholds, those are significant challenges for us that we're tackling every day.
Yeah, and you talked about a key differentiator, which is going to the company websites themselves. So these are the actual employers, right? That are posting jobs, everything from an administrative clerk position to a Python programmer, right? And you're also not only looking for when they post a job, but also when they remove that, right? And what do you do that for? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So we know, again, so we're each company that we scrape, we have individual scrapes, we do all the scraping in-house, and we build them specifically to go out and look for every job listing. We know exactly when the job goes up on that website. We know it's a unique job. We do some specific work and develop some technologies around identifying new jobs. And then when we go back and we do not see that job anymore, we know that it was removed. And so that is a signal. Most often, not 100% of the time, but most often, that's a signal that the job has been filled. There are cases where if there are basically statistically significant removals of jobs, that might be a signal that either they are in a period of sort of a downturn, they no longer have an intent to fill those positions. In some cases, it actually indicates too layoffs might be coming. So there are cases where jobs are removed, not because it was filled with a new hire. But again, it's that duration metric that also, when you know how long it takes to fill a job, essentially provides a proxy for hiring velocities.
So you have like a time to fill metric, if you may. Right?
Exactly.
So whenever you're in normal circumstances, that time to fill approach is simple to calculate, but when there's abrupt changes, you're saying that could be a signal that jobs are being pulled faster than they're being filled.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very interesting.